Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Ben Hull.
And I'm Aaron Simpson.
We're here to talk to you about our early season predictions, post-draft, post a couple of huge free agent moves and trades. We're going to give our early predictions for the playoff picture, and we're going to tell you a little bit of why we think each team is going to land where they're going to land in the playoff picture.
Here, let me go first. Okay. We're going to start with the West. Number 1 seed, no surprise, Warriors. They kept everybody, really, that they needed to keep. Then they re-signed Kevin Durant. Ben, who's your number 1 seed in the West?
I also have the Warriors. Andre Iguodala was really a main factor. They had to keep him. If they didn't keep him, I still probably would have put him at 1, but it would have been harder for them to win the whole thing at championship. Okay, number 2, I have the Spurs. Just a consistent team. They added Rudy Gay, kept their main pieces. What do you have?
Number 2 for 2 so far. I also have the Spurs as the 2 seed. Really had no guys that could have even left. And they do, as you say, get Rudy Gay, who coming off that Achilles surgery was probably going to start the season on the bench. And will probably play most of the year as a bench player. But as a backup for Kawhi Leonard, gets him some rest. They're trying to bounce that back from getting swept in the Western Conference Finals by the Warriors. Now, Manu Ginobili, I don't think he has really made a for sure decision on if he's going to retire or not. So that's something to see. My 3 seed in the West is going to be the Rockets. They, of course, made the huge pickup with Chris Paul. But my big question is, how's that going to play out with Chris Paul and James Harden, of course, both being primary point guards for their teams last year, and Harden, of course, leading the league in assist. Ben, who's your 3 seed in the West?
I'm going to go away from the Rockets. I don't see that the Chris Paul and James Harden combo meshing well in the beginning of the season. So I think that the Thunder will actually take the 3 seed because they're going to be better in the beginning. I think it'll still be an adjustment for the Thunder. Russell Westbrook and Paul George will have to adjust to playing together. Paul George will have to get his touches. Russell Westbrook will have to avoid or give away some touches probably. And that'll be an adjustment, but I have them at 3. For my 4 seed, I have the Rockets, so we just flip-flop the 3 and 4.
Yeah.
They're a good team, and I think that they'll be pretty much just as good as last year with a little early season struggles, though.
Now, the Thunder, the reason why I had them at 4, the reason being is that the same reason you have the Rockets at 4. You don't think that James Harden and Chris Paul is going to mesh well. I think the same thing, but I think it's going to be on the other side with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. I don't see that meshing well first 15, 20 games. The Rockets will have their troubles, but I think they have a more talented team to overcome those troubles and get the 3 seed. The 5 seed, the team everyone's talking about, the big Jimmy Butler trade, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think they finally get over the hump. The hump people thought they'd get over last season. I see them getting over that this season. I see them going to the 5 seed and maybe winning a round in the playoffs against the Thunder. But, of course, you're going to run into the buzzsaw that is the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I definitely see Timberwolves. I also have them at 5. They're a great team. New additions will really help them. Taj Gibson, Jimmy Butler. Who's the point guard that they added?
Jeff Teague.
Jeff Teague will be a good addition, and then they got the Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns, who are both really young studs. So I think they'll be a good team. I think they'll be very much improved from last season. At 6, I have the Clippers. I just think that even though they lost Chris Paul, they still have talent with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. And they also lost J.J. Redick, but I still see them being a contender and a good team.
At 6, that's our second difference. The 6, I have the Portland Trail Blazers. I think they had a tough year last year. All that preseason hype, could they challenge the Warriors? They were, of course, not able to do that, getting swept in the playoffs by them as the 8th seed. And a guy I think that's going to make a difference on this team, watch out for Zach Collins. Was the number 10 pick in the draft. They made a draft night trade in getting him. Guy out of Gonzaga. I think he's a guy who can definitely come off the bench as a rookie and make a splash. My 7th seed is the Los Angeles Clippers. I almost had them out, but then I said, you know what? They said Blake Griffin. They still have DeAndre Jordan. Austin Rivers, coach's son, is going to have to make a starting role now. at the point. So I think that'll take some getting used to at first, but I still see them making the playoffs. And I'm just going to end my West. Dallas Mavericks. This is only the second time in however many years in a while that they didn't make the playoffs. I think Nerlens Noel is going to make a difference. Dirk Nowitzki coming back, I think will make a huge difference as well. And I see them squeaking in the playoffs as an 8 seed.
Okay. I have at 7. I have Trailblazers. I know you had them at 6. They made an 8 seed, so I think I see them getting improved, but I can't see them beating out the Clippers for the 6th seed. They have great talent, but I put them at 7. And then for 8, I have the Pelicans. I love the duo of DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis. I just think that's a match made in heaven, and I think that they will dominate the post against any team that they play.
Going to kick off the East now. Really nothing changing for me in the top. Boston Celtics, I say they take that regular season title. Gordon Hayward, I think this is a team that can definitely win 60 games. Now, what they do in the playoffs, I think it's another story. But I see this team definitely taking the number 1 spot in the East.
Yeah, I think we both have the top 3 picks, so you just want to go through those together.
Yeah.
So I also have Boston. I think that they're going to keep their seed. They added Gordon Hayward, so why not stay at number 1?
Number 2, we both have the Cavs. Quite simple, LeBron James. LeBron James.
Best player in the NBA right now.
Best player in the NBA. Averaged a triple-double in the NBA Finals, albeit his team lost in 5 games. But no one, I think, is going to beat the Warriors for a while with that nucleus staying together. And number 3, we both have the Raptors. I think the Raptors did what they had to do, kept Serge Ibaka, kept Kyle Lowry, and I see them continuing to try to make a difference, but they probably will run into a buzzsaw that is the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second round again, as did this past season.
Yeah, I think the Raptors will be good as well. For my 4 seed in the East, I have the Bucks. Now, I think that they're going to be a really good team with Antetokounmpo and the young players that they have.
Brogdon,
Jabari Parker
coming back.
Brogdon, the Rookie of the Year. And I think that they'll just improve again and get to the 4 seed.
4 seed, I have the Washington Wizards. Their team, with the 4 seed last year, so won't really change that up. They were a tough out in the playoffs for the Boston Celtics. I think that series is going 7 games. But you have John Wall, you have Bradley Beal, a top 5 guard duo. But so you have that there, and I just don't see them. I don't see the Bucks. I don't see the Bucks as a top 4 team yet, and I actually have them as my number 5 seed. Again, Giannis, Brogdon, Jabari Parker coming back. This is a team that can make some noise in the playoff this year, maybe run around, but that's as far as I see them going.
Okay. We flipped these again. I have the Wizards at 5. I think they're good. They got Otto Porter back.
Yeah.
John Wall, Bradley Beal. I think that they'll be competitive. I think they could win around, maybe even 2. They may surprise some people. It's the 6th seed for the East. I have the Heat. Now, who do you have at 6?
We all I think our last 3 seeds, we have the same ones. The Heat at 6, 76ers at 7, and Pistons at 8. The surprise team, probably people that are hearing this are probably saying, you have the 76ers in. I do, because I think they have a lot of young talent. The East has dwindled, and the teams that you are confident in making the playoffs. So you definitely will have teams that will mess around and make the playoffs. The Pistons, they get Avery Bradley, they get a scorer that they need that can score night in, night out.
And he's good defensively.
And he's a really good defensive player. So I think that's a team that can definitely squeak in as an 8 seed, make some noise, give Boston a run for their money if that ends up being the 1 seed 8 matchup. So what are your thoughts on your final 3 teams?
The thing I love about the 76ers, on paper they look amazing. They have 3 top 3 picks. Joel Embiid, Markelle Fultz, and Ben Simmons. And they're all going to be able to play this year, as far as we know. now. Markel Fultz had the high ankle sprain, but I still think that he'll be a huge factor.
Yeah, nothing that we should keep him out for the season.
And I think the Pistons with who's their point guard?
With Brandon Knight, Stanley Johnson, of course, and adding Avery Bradley.
Yeah, I think that their guards are going to be good, and yeah. Okay, why we're missing some usual folks.
Yes.
The Utah Jazz, one team that is normally in is not in. Losing Gordon Hayward, of course, is a main reason for
losing
that.
your top two guys in Hayward and Hill, I think that's going to be a knock. And we're both, from the Memphis area, so we don't have the Grizzlies in there. Mainly because when you lose a guy like Zach Randolph, and you're more than likely going to lose a guy like Tony Allen, two guys who have been staples in this 6-7 year run of making the playoffs, and really regenerizing the franchise. I think you lose those guys. You're going to be a two-man team, and the only way I see you making the playoffs with two main guys is if you have help, and that with the guys that they're going to have help them are improving. So we don't know Chandler Parsons, can he be healthy? So I think there's a lot of teams in the West that can definitely move up with the Jazz and Grizzlies losing guys. Now let's talk about the East teams missing. You got the Hawks, who besides the Spurs have the second longest active playoff streak. The Grizzlies have the 3. So those are two long-standing playoff streaks in consecutive making the playoffs ending. Why do you see the Hawks missing the playoffs?
Well, as we talked about earlier, between me and you, they lost Paul Millsaps.
They did. They lost Jeff Teague.
Two huge contributors to the team. I just don't see them working out. They're not. I don't know. They're not.
And they did lose Tim Hardaway Jr., who was a role player.
To say it flat, they're not good anymore.
I agree. Now we also have, I think it is there's some other teams missing. Not really jumping off the board of this right now. But if we took a team off and you don't agree with it, that's fine. Our main thing is we're looking at post-free agency deals. Teams who we think got worse. Indiana Pacers. Why did they trade Paul George? A lot of people are probably saying that's a good deal because when you come out and say right before the offseason even started, I'm leaving. I'm out of here, but I'm going to play out the rest of the year. I think you have to make that trade. You had to get that out of your locker room. You don't want to go into training camp with that in your locker room because it's going to be – I think they were in the middle of a disastrous season anyway, probably with these Eastern Conference teams getting better. But I think that just added fuel to the fire. They didn't want to go through the season with that in their locker room. I commend them for it, but I still see them hurting them in the short term.
Yeah, and what really hurt them is that Paul George came out in the media and the public and told everyone that he was going to leave.
Exactly.
Because they had no leverage.
Exactly. Had it been in-house and him just telling them that.
The Pacers could have got so much more out of it.
Exactly, but with it coming out and him saying he was going to L.A., I mean, a lot of teams still wanted him. I mean, you had the Celtics, I think, were trying to get that trade done. He ends up getting shipped to the Thunder. But it's going to be a tough season, I think, for a lot of teams in the NBA that have been stables in the playoffs the last 4 or 5 seasons. It's going to be tough years for them. But
another one is the Bulls. They were the 8 seed last year.
The trading Jimmy Butler, I think, is the main reason that I had them off. Because you're going to basically rely on a 34-year-old Dwayne Wade to put the team on his back. And I don't think had it been 18 years ago, that I'm okay with that because that's what we did in Miami. But with really having no help, having no help, I don't see them doing much.
Yeah. Okay, I think we covered a lot of it.
A lot of issues.
One team that we did leave out was the Lakers. I think one major reason for that is they're still young and they're losing.
Team.
They don't have the talent that we want them to have yet.
Exactly.
To make it.
Now, if Paul George does end up going there, then I think that changes the mold. Lonzo Barball came out and said that Lonzo's going to lead the team to the playoffs the first year. I don't see that happening. Now, if they get Paul George, I definitely see them making the playoffs next year if they're able to keep the young nucleus of Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo Ball, excuse me. But you trade away D'Angelo Russell. You do get a Brook Lopez, so, that gives you some inside help. But I just don't see them in a stacked Western Conference. I just do not see them making the playoffs.
I agree. All right. I think that wraps it up. Have any final comments?
I think I'm excited for the NBA season. Our next podcast, we'll talk about the NFL offseason with training camp, of course, coming out in a week from this recording, a couple weeks from this recording, excuse me. So our next episode, whenever that may be, we'll hit the NFL offseason and talk about our predictions there.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for listening. This has been...
I'm Aaron.
All right, see you next time.